Things are getting really spicy between 1302's War Camp and 846 in today's Fort Wall update. In addition, on the other side of the map, 525 has gotten an even stronger foothold. So in this video, I'll give you the full update and talk about, okay, so what happens next? Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, and people have been tuning in at an astonishing rate to check in on the daily update for this crazy fort wall executed by 1302 and their War Camp ally 2327. Now this morning was freaking hot. A lot happened at the fort wall over here because although it looks sort of similar to the way that it did a day ago, it's several notches further back, and importantly, Sin built a reach-around fort that extended all the way over the top, and they were burning 3 back-to-back forts at a time earlier today. It was definitely brutal to watch and quite effective on their part, so congratulations to 846 on finding that fort drop that let them burn literally 3 back-to-back forts at a time. With that said, the longer this defense goes on, the more and more feasible it seems that 1302 and their allies will have some amount of territory leading into the next zone fight, which gets really interesting because you may recall that I thought with the way that things were going to evolve, that there wasn't probably going to be a way for 1302 to get into this zone, Isle de France, realistically. But I actually think it could be possible. And that changes the way that we might ultimately play in 1254. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The implications are very significant. In the meanwhile, interesting things have been happening on the left side of the map. Here's a fort drop from 525. You may recall in yesterday's video, I was like, man, 945... they built this fort, they burned a fort, they had all this territory. I thought for sure that they were setting up to hold this land for a long time. But somehow, 525, fort dropped behind the lines, burned all the flags, and now it's pretty much just the fort over here still holding it down. So if we get a look around the map, their new sort of stronghold for the remaining week of this zone is down over here in the bottom part of this zone. And yes, they should absolutely try to hold it if they can. Absolutely, they should try to be as disruptive and opportunistic in their trades as they possibly can. So what does all this mean? Well, there's some interesting things that we can start to see with how the map is now unfolding, given that we've got about a week until the passes open for these zones, Touraine and also the Isle de France. And the reason this is so significant is that, you know, a long time ago, 846 said, we'll go both ways. We dare you to do this, and we'll go both ways. We took their dare. They did not go both ways. But the point I'm trying to make is we may be looking at a go both ways situation in 1254. Why am I saying that? Well, if 1254 goes into Touraine exclusively, which is what I thought we were going to do based on just the sort of way I anticipated the map was going to evolve, that would guarantee that we could take 365 in the 2v1. Technically, actually, it'd be a 2v2. It'd be 525 and 254 battling 365 and 945. I felt like that favored us because, as you can see, 945 will not have access to one of these passes into Touraine. So if you look really closely, 525 can actually get some really advantageous territory over here and cause supreme disruption to the way 365 enters into this zone. So it is important, I think, that we take Touraine, and the safest thing we could do is go all in, guarantee we get Touraine, move into Anjou, guarantee we get Anjou, and it guarantees we've got a couple zones and we lock 945. But given that 1302 actually could make it into the next fight, now things get really interesting because there's an argument for going both ways. What would that look like? Well, 1254 would have to push into this zone. However, 846 would have the same pass advantage I was describing that 525 would have. This means that they would be able to shoot in really fast, a deep fort drop would be difficult to execute, and I think very ill-advised. Now, in 1254, we have a habit of executing and delivering on ill-advised plans of action, sometimes more successful than others. So, I don't know, man. Do we go for a deep fort drop and try to help these guys? I don't know what our actual plan is, but I can see that it is conceivable that going into the Isle de France is an important strategy. And it could even be that we have, SW, and again, I actually am not privy to what the plans are. I'm literally just reading what's happening on the board and saying, well, what might be logical, okay? And what might be logical is for W to be building into this zone, potentially, obviously, another alliance at this pass building into this zone. But if there's not much resistance, or if 525 is able to drive most of it, or if 365 puts most of their effort over here in Isle de France, then people just join some of these other alliances, port over, and focus the fight over here. And the thing that's obviously really critical for 365 is they have to get a safe zone, and they don't want 846 to get locked. So, I mean, they have to hard commit to this zone, right? Like, they have to go all in with 846 to get Isle de France. And so it will be very interesting to see which fights we pick in 1254. Do we go both ways, or do we focus one way or the other? I think the obvious, safest play is to go into terrain and to just hold it down. But if 1302 is holding on well enough, and there is a chance that with a distracted 846 that they can push their way to this pass or cause serious damage, then going into Isle de France actually looks like it's really important to do. So this KVK may not actually have a Kingsland fight. If 254 and our allies win in this upcoming fight, that means we get potentially Isle de France and terrain and lock up the whole thing. Alternatively, if 365, 846, and 945 are super productive, then they get Isle de France, they finish up 1302, and then you've got a Kingsland showdown between 846 and 1365 from the Isle de France, and 525 and 254 coming from terrain. And then you've got that Kingsland showdown, and you would have, at that point, if that evolves that way, you've got the poke that you'll get from, 945 as they try to break out of a pass over here, or alternatively, well, no, I guess it's just over here. They try to break free, right? Alternatively, they may in 1302 try to break free as well. But you can see, I mean, everybody's getting really serious about barricading in 1302. There's just, one small problem that's taken 5 days to resolve, and it might take another week, and that's the fact that they've got this chunk of land. And it's enough. It's enough to be super disruptive. And the thing that's interesting about a kingdom design like you have in 1302 is that you've got one ultra-stacked alliance compared to the others. Now, hilariously, they're not in this alliance now, but when they were all in the Song Shell, it was like an 18 billion power alliance. So, it's a small number of players you fit onto a small footprint, and that could work, okay? But will it work? It all depends on how well the sort of forts are able to be held here. I do see one player is not in any alliance here and just got zeroed. I was a little worried about it, but, when I took a look at their stats, and I mean no disrespect, okay? But I was looking at their stats, I was like, okay, 16.8 mil dead, 730 million kill points, highest power 75 million. Is it weird to say that that might be a farm account? I don't know. They have a negative title on them, minus health. So, I don't know. Maybe someone's like, yeah, you could deal with that. Please deal with it. It's a favor. But I say it might be a farm account because, like, hey, look, when I look at my farm account, what are the stats? I guess they have more kill points. My highest power is 83 mil. I have more deads, 18.4 million deads, and that's without getting zeroed. And 357 million kill points. I guess that would indicate The kill points on that account are probably too high for it to actually be a farm. GG. Oh, yeah. I'm kind of embarrassing that I may have just accused a fighting account of being a farm. But either way, they have the negative 5% health title on them, okay? So something is obviously funky when you have your own kingdom being like, hey, here, have fun. They're our slave. Do with them what you will. Okay. Now, on the topic of this part of the map, notice something very strategic. They've got these 7-day builds for granaries. Now, there's something kind of funky with a granary, an Alliance Resource Center, which is that if you don't build it within a certain time frame, it does disappear. So they do, I think, need to complete the build and then let it sit. But I think you can get like 3 days of build time and 3 days of sit time before the node itself just kind of disappears. And why does this matter? Well, I think that Song and 1302 are rightfully concerned about more of these reach around forts. The forts reaching around the top here is really problematic, and it bought an immense amount of time for 846. And it looks like this is a really interesting solution. It looks like they may have, I don't know, like deleted one of the forts, and then the territory of the HSA fort took over the Song territory and re-encapsulated this one, because I thought this was getting burned before, and now it's not getting burned, and its territory is all locked up in that itty-bitty square. So I'm not exactly sure what went down there, but I know that there were before 1, 2, and then 3 forts all burning at once. 2 of them were Song. So I think they might have, I don't know, deleted one of the forts, perhaps? So the territory shrunk up, and now they don't have this problem. It's definitely interesting. I don't think that you can actually hit this fort currently, although they obviously could before. I mean, it's really, really low. And it looks like they are grouping up to burn this particular fort imminently. So I think they're about to run a rally on this. Maybe we'll stick around for just a little bit, spectate the rally on this fort, and see how the defense is going. Also, I see this player's got the Duke. I could just shoot them a message real quick and say, like, hey, would it be possible to get some reports? So, yep, they're moving in. So rally should be imminent. And we'll see kind of how that goes. You see Makote on the front line here. He's down to 278 million power. This dude commits. There are few people that commits like Makote. I mean, I don't think he was at his highest power of 606. But he has lost, I think, many hundreds of millions of power doing work on this war front, which is really crazy, man. There's just no denying the insane commit. And one thing I will point out is you see he's in Wib, and he's off territory, and he's holding King. Why does this matter? When they launch this rally, I'm going to assume it's coming from Makote's city. And because he's in a different alliance than everybody else over here, you see Lit, you see Sin, the area of effect damage from the fort will only hit Wib players. And now that we've got these battle reports that have summaries, players are really just starting to catch on to how much insane damage they're taking from area of effect damage. And they're just starting to catch on to how insanely advantaged the defender is in getting just a ton of free kills with area of effect damage. So they've moved in, which means this rally should go any second. I mean, look at all these guys moving in. And this is basically what 846 needs to do all day, every day, 24/7 against these forts. They just have to keep sending it, man. They just have to keep sending it. This front fort is in some trouble. It's probably got 10 hours left. Meanwhile, the HSE fort is building. That will finish in a couple minutes. The weirdness here, it does look like because of the order of these forts and how they were built, this territory will expand to cover the footprint of this guy, because, you know, whichever fort finishes last will be the last one to have their territory expand. Whichever fort finishes first will be the first one to have its territory expand. So I think, it could be that it could be, I actually don't know how this works, chat. You'll have to clue me in the comments. But it could be that if this fort dies and this fort dies, the first thing that happens if this fort dies first is this guy's territory expands out to here. And if it expands out to here, I don't know if this one will then contain it later. It might not. I mean, it's all, look, there's a lot to this. I know it's like, you really need to know exactly how the building works, and I may need to check in with some territory planners to check my understanding on what happens in this weird situation. Okay, hey, guys, where's the rally? Why are you letting it repair so much for free? Okay, just kidding. It took like 2 seconds. The rally isn't coming from Makote City. It's coming from Laguna City. Bro, I did not know Laguna was a rally lead. I did not know Laguna had that kind of armament. Dang. Okay. Laguna 46. Getting up in this business with a Boudica rally. We've got a Hera YSS Garrison. Big AoE damage. But, oh my god. I mean, if there were a kingdom in the game that you would count on to have some crit iconic leadership gear, I suppose 1302 might be one of those kingdoms. It's just such a specialized thing. But the endgame players know that the crit iconic leadership stuff's pretty good. Okay, so rally is hitting. It's doing really, really big skill damage, and the white numbers are good enough. The white numbers are negative, but it doesn't matter because, you know, this garrison is doing 80,000 damage per skill cycle, and this rally is doing 273,000 damage. Bro, I don't know. Something feels fishy here. So a part of the weirdness of this is that although they are defending forts and the fort's now getting swarmed, wow. The weirdness is that when you have to use all these sub-alliances, they don't have the holy sites in the home kingdom. Whereas attacking from Wib, I mean, this is one of the top shells, I assume, in 846. So it's got the benefit of all the holy sites. Wow, this looks like it hurts. 200,000 skill damage is painful. Big swarm. Makote leading that swarm. And there's the pop. GG. Woof. Man, that's crazy. That is crazy. And you can see there's some farms in there. There's some mains in there. Dragon Lancer filling. Big poggers. You know, mini in the name of the account. Obviously farm. That's literally got farm in the name. So I think the goal is to try to kill off your farm troops. Like all of them, defending these forts, and then pour it in a new farm to replace it. Ay. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. I am eager to see how this insane fort drama will continue to evolve. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom. Oh, and there are a couple videos leading up to this moment in time you might want to check out that explain exactly how we got here. Cards will be in the end screen for those in just a second.